I uncovered 7 terrifying sexual rituals from the Middle Ages that lead to unbelievable fate. I never should have opened that door. The air was thick, a silence that felt wrong. I stood there, heart pounding, staring at the old wooden door. It creaked as I pushed it, like it held years of secrets. It swung open and darkness poured out, as if the room beyond was waiting. Watching. I was just an ordinary person, going through my day, scrolling through old texts for research. The rituals seemed harmless, history cloaked in mystery, until I stumbled onto something dark. Each ritual I read about chilled me to the bone. A forgotten past unsealed before me, whispering tales of blood and desire. One ritual, the wedded to the mist, had brides draped in veils spun from the fog on their wedding night. They danced barefoot in the eerie silence, their bare feet feeling the chill of the earth below. Shivers ran down my spine imagining their confusion, their fear, as whispers filled the air. He will come another was the unholy union. Partners would meet in secret, beneath the shadow of ancient trees, chanting in a language lost to time. The ground throbbed beneath them, alive with the energy of their desperate marriage. I could see them, bathed in moonlight, fear flickering in their eyes as they felt unseen watchers observing their every move, and then there was the rite of screams, where lovers would pierce their own skin to let out cries that echoed through the night. It was said the louder the scream, the deeper the bond. I felt sick, picturing the raw red walls steeped in pain and the chilling silence that followed each echo. I swallowed hard, the dread settling in my gut. I could feel the past creeping closer. Shadows swirled around me like ghosts from those haunted times. The room felt colder, and my heart raced a rhythm of lingering terror. Suddenly, a noise snapped me from my thoughts. A faint rustle, the sound of movement in the shadows. I turned, breathless, sensing an impossible presence looming behind me. My instincts screamed to run, yet a paralyzed curiosity held me in place. I moved closer, drawn to the darkness, as the whispers transformed into urging commands. Each breathing moment thick with suspense. I stepped forward, and that's when the figure appeared. It hovered at the edge of the light, a silhouette that sent chills down my spine. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My throat tightened, still frozen. The door slammed shut behind me, and my heart dropped. What was I about to uncover? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The figure beyond the dim light was neither fully corporeal nor an illusion, its form flickering like the dying flame of a candle. My breath hitched as it stepped forward, revealing a face that twisted and morphed, a grotesque collage of despair and longing. Eyes like voids stared into me, sucking the warmth from the room and replacing it with dread so thick it felt like grasping tendrils around my throat. Do you seek the truth? It rasped, voice echoing from deep within the earth, modulated by echoes of ancient pain. I remained paralyzed, my pulse thrumming in my ears, drowning out reason. The words were intoxicating and terrifying. I could feel my earlier curiosity shifting into something darker, something that clawed at the walls of my mind, begging to be unleashed. No, I wanted to explain that I was merely a researcher, a seeker of stories long forgotten, but it was too late. The shadows that crept around my feet seemed to writhe with anticipation, awakening memories of the rituals I had read. The wedded to the mist, the unholy union, the rite of screams, they pulsed through me, darker now, like a tempest of blinding desire threatening to overtake my sanity. The figure tilted its head, and the room twisted with its movement, the walls breathing, the floor trembling. They offered their pain. They surrendered to darkness, yearning for connections that transcended their mortal existence. Do you seek the same? An anchor of instinct pulled me away, and I stumbled backward, the resulting thud echoing against the walls. The door behind me remained resolutely shut, the silence outside mocking my plight. I felt myself teetering closer to a precipice. The truth wanted me, and deep down, I yearned for it too. The figure extended an emaciated arm, a claw grasping toward me, and suddenly the air crackled with energy. Whispers intensified, layering around me like thick fog. Join them. Consume the fear. Let passion drown you. Desperation fueled my feet as I turned to flee, but the darkness closed in, swirling and tugging at my limbs. Shadows reached out like claws, cradling me in their ghastly embrace, embedding fear so deep I could scarcely breathe. I was falling into a pit of unearthly echoes, the tales of desire and pain merging into one, a singular reality threatening to claim me. In that horrifying moment, I recognized the figures of those who had danced in the mist, and the lovers in anguish, their screams now harmonizing within me. Their thirst for connection seemed to clash inside my own unwilling heart. I gasped for something tethered to reality but found none. Then the air shifted, a new presence unfurled behind me. It was heavier than shadow, laden with grief, as though the sorrow of ages had condensed into a being. I turned slowly, dread coursing through me, and there stood another figure, this one draped in tattered veils, her eyes shimmering like fleeting stars amid the darkness. "Leave him!" she cried with a voice that trembled, yet thundered with authority. "Their whispers are deception. You must not succumb." A cyclone of chaos whirled around us as intangible forces lashed out, the air thickening with violence. I was caught between them, two realms of existence colliding within the confines of this forgotten room. What horror had I stumbled upon? Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream shattered the tension, piercing through the cacophony like shattered glass. It echoed louder than any ritual I had read, a war cry of tortured souls clawing for release, and in that moment, I recognized it my own voice. The figure in veils lunged forward, reaching for me just as the shadows erupted, the entire room warping, alive with a violent theatric of chaos and despair. I could feel myself slipping, the veil of darkness felt like quicksand, pulling me toward something beyond comprehension, and then silence. I stood alone in the still air, gasping, the figures dissolved, the room eerily vacant. But as I turned to escape, icy tendrils latched onto my ankles, dragging me back. The whispers surged around me, chanting in ecstatic glee. "If you want to leave, you must join the dance." The spectral figures reformed around me, shimmering beneath the darkened light, their eyes burning with unfulfilled longing. I felt their energy engulfing me, demanding my submission. My heart raced, the urge to scream clawing at my throat, my body thrumming with the terror of realization I was not just an observer, I had become part of their grotesque tapestry. And then, a voice cut through the haze, familiar yet unrecognizable. "Why did you disturb us?" In that instant, I turned to find my own reflection in their eyes, a hollow semblance of myself, consumed by yearning and dread. The door behind me dissipated into fog, and I could feel the weight of the past, unyielding, inexorable, closing in. As the laughter crescendoed and the darkness coiled tight around my throat, the last thought that flickered through my mind was nothing less than pure terror. What price would I pay to discover the fate of those who came before me? And then, the brush of icy fingers caressed my skin, sending shivers through every nerve as I was pulled deeper into their world. Dance with us or perish in darkness. The shadows would determine that fate, and I was about to step into a nightmare woven of a history long buried. As the echo of the figure's words faded into the pulsating darkness, I felt my heart thrumming louder than ever, each beat a frantic plea for life against the inevitability of surrender. The shadows danced around me, an amorphous cloud of desires long deceased. They were whispers that twisted through my consciousness, echoing stories of lost souls yearning for connection through the veil of corporeal restraints. Their laughter rose like a tempest, mocking my every instinct, binding me further to their malignant desires. The spectral dancers swirled, weaving their intricate patterns, glowing with an unnatural light that flickered and dimmed. I faltered, surrendering to the thrumming energy that pulsed from within. Each flick of their translucent forms sent waves of hunger crashing through me, the paralyzing fear they exuded entwined itself with an inexplicable allure. Deep down, I felt the world beyond the mist slipping away, leaving me stranded among these ephemeral wraiths devoid of humanity. I stood on the precipice of unthinkable depravity, a witness to history's grotesque shrouds. Suddenly, one of the figures broke from the circle and approached me. Its face was a mesmerizing distortion, a fleeting reflection of beauty and terror that continuously morphed like a grotesque mask. The creature extended its elongated finger and brushed it lightly across my cheek, a caress that ignited a conflagration of dread intertwining with overwhelming ecstasy. "Feel what they felt," it whispered, breath hot and acrid against my skin. A million voices flooded my mind, each recounting a different ritual, each drenched in darkness and longing. The clamoring whispers melded into a single narrative, a tale of bodies entwined while the shadows devoured their essence. "Give in," it urged. "We crave you." With its touch, images burst unfurling in my mind, crimson rituals lit by flickering torches where mortals surrendered their beings to darker powers. The figures in chains, forced into ecstatic rapture amidst cries of pain, entwining pleasure with agony. Their resonating screams echoed through my thoughts like a baleful hymn, each note punctuating the horror of surrender. "No," I whimpered, stepping back, only to feel the gnarled tendrils of fear wrapping tighter around me, paralyzing my will. What had they shared with me? What vile connection had I just glimpsed? The figures around me wailed in a tribute to the broken souls, twisting their forms in a frenzied dance of despair, each move urging me to be a part of their eternal lament. Suddenly, the darkness began to shift. It felt sentient, the shadows breathed heavily around me, drawing away in agitation. The wraiths parted, revealing a doorway veiled in the heaviest fog. Through it, another realm beckoned, a glimmer of existence that felt so tantalizingly close, yet so forbidding in its allure that I was drawn toward it, but the figures surged forward, screeching in unison, "You cannot leave. You belong to us." The cacophony was suffocating, the palpable frenzy lashing against my mind. Their despair was intoxicating, coaxing me to join their eternal anguish as if my essence could be a bridge to what they longed for. "No!" I screamed, but the words echoed hollowly as I stumbled backward. Everything around me began to twist in a disorienting spiral, swirling with earthbound lamentations transformed into a symphony of chaos. I had reached a crossroads, and every ounce of my being screamed for escape, but the ethereal song of the shadows clung to me like sticky vines. The figure with the haunting visage stepped closer, its visage a painful reminder of every lost pleasure, every unfulfilled desire wrapped in torment. "Isn't it what you truly desire, to be freed from the shackles of your existence?" And then, the ground beneath me morphed into a vortex of pulsating light and swirling despair. It felt like the entire essence of the room was swallowing me whole, transforming gravity into an intangible reality that compelled me to adhere to the darkness. Suddenly, I was flung to the ground, gasping for breath. My body bore the weight of unseen chains, dragging me down, intertwining with the souls trapped in this horrific dance of shadows. The whispers morphed into a defiant chant, vibrant and life-affirming in their twisted reality, drowning me in what I once sought to unravel. "Join us," they cried in a measured tone, urging me to relent. "You are one of us, now and forever." The shadows recoiled, the lights flickered, and then I saw her again, the veiled figure from before, her features stark in contrast to the chaos. Desperation mingled with shreds of hope glittered in her eyes. "Fight it!" she screamed above the cacophony. "You can resist." In that moment, my heart trembled with renewed anguish. The spectral tide surged, the very walls of the room retreating into a flicker of understanding. As I clung to the fragments of reality, I felt the weight of their insatiable horrors wrapped tightly around my soul. Amidst the whirlpool of despair, both familiar and unknown, I understood my only option to yield to this unbearable legacy or master it. Just as I steeled my will against the tide, the entire room shuddered violently. The figures let out a bone-chilling wail. The floor cracked, fissures unfurling in jagged patterns beneath me, revealing an abyss filled with muted screams. The darkness yawned wider, clenching at my ankles with a feral hunger. In that moment of anguish and dread, the walls began to tremble violently, and the terrifying truth cut through like a shard of ice: I was no longer a mere observer. They were awakening something older than time itself, and I was their sacrifice. The last thought that clawed at my mind before the darkness swallowed me whole was that of the unspeakable price every seeker had paid, and the true horror revealed in the choice I might never really have. All I could do was scream into the abyss, clinging to the thread of consciousness as the figures surged towards me, dictating the fate of my existence. I was ensnared in their dance, teetering on an edge I had only begun to fathom. As I plunged into the unyielding darkness, a terror's cape unfurled before me, a morbid theater of twisted fantasies and unearthly cravings. My body, once my trusted vessel, felt foreign sluggish beneath the weight of suffocating shadows intertwining with my thoughts. With each passing heartbeat, I was pulled deeper into this abyss of sentience that watched my misery with insatiable hunger. I floated adrift in the vacuum of despair, no longer merely watching but absorbing the dark, fetid air around me, feeling it seep into my very being. The memories of the spectral dancers clawed at me, whispering tales of unholy pleasures and agonized ecstasy blending into one wretched form. Each harrowing image flooded my mind, laced with lingering decay and the scent of fetid soil. A desperate longing for connection manifested in grotesque and unspeakable acts. Then, from the darkness, silhouettes began to emerge, more substantial than the wraiths I'd witnessed. Their faces were half imagined, contorted into forms of anguished desire mingled with the ecstasy of release. They reached for me with claw-like hands, beckoning me closer to their decaying embrace. "Join us!" they clamored, voices blending into a single wailing anthem. "Consume what we have." Within that clamoring, I saw a grotesque altar, draped in shadows. Atop it lay remnants of ancient offerings, shattered bones, moldering flowers, and rotting fruits, each an echo of humanity's desires steeped in blood and anguish. The altar pulsed as if alive, radiating an infernal energy that twisted my insides with longing and dread. "Is this the price?" I shouted, my voice cracking against the cacophony. "To become another wretch in your endless existence?" "Freedom lies within the sacrifice," a nouveau figure hissed, slithering from the gloom. A woman, veiled and regal, her exquisite features marred by the shadows that danced greedily around her. "You seek answers, yet you fear the unveiling. Rebirth or oblivion choose, but choose wisely." The words twisted in my mind, an invitation and a barricade. I could feel their anticipation swelling like a monstrous tide. It dawned on me then that these entities, these nightmarish shadows, craved not only my surrender but my very essence, as if my life's essence were a key to their unfathomable power. With a tremor of defiance, I staggered back, grappling with the looming figures. But clarity slipped like sand through my fingers, visions assaulted me, drowning out reason. I was thrust into memories discarded long ago, ceremonies wherein innocents offered themselves at sadistic altars, bound in chains of flesh and deficits. Each moment echoed with the sounds of ecstasy mingled with agony, the very essence of life twisted beyond recognition. "No more!" I gasped, struggling against the binds of twilight. My struggle only fueled their hunger. The creature at the altar raised its arms, beckoning shadows to encompass me further, drawing colorful threads of energy from the void into its grasp, interweaving them into a tapestry that pulsed with malevolence. With each heartbeat, the walls of the nightmare thinned, and beyond them, I glimpsed another world filled with a vibrant life that felt achingly distant. Yet I was chained by a singular, blinding desire to stay here, a life spent exploring darkness rather than fleeing it. The portal trembled, exposing flashes of sunlight that felt foreign and painful in comparison to the intimate darkness that encased me like a well-worn blanket, and then, without warning, the dimensions warped violently, the altar illuminating with an otherworldly glow that momentarily banished the shadows. The figures shrieked in unison, and the binding energy surged with a deafening roar. As the very air around me thickened with electric tension, I felt the energy shifting, the realities blending into an abominable rapture. Fingers from the shadows reached for me incessantly, and I could feel the light pouring into my chest, igniting sparks of courage and fear simultaneously. Heart pounding, I realized I was no longer simply ensnared but being pulled into a greater design. The chants grew louder, their words all piercing through the darkness like siren calls, begging me to choose a side, to relinquish my fight and embrace the darkness within. "Join us and bear witness to the true glory of eternity." The shadowed figures cried, their voices rotating in a euphoric crescendo, and in that harrowing moment where light and dark met, the agony burst forth, revealing a juxtaposition of truth and deceit. With electrifying terror, I cried out, "I refuse." But the shadows only laughed, twisting tighter, and in that instant, I felt an overwhelming surge as my consciousness shattered into fragments, each echoing with the laughter of the Forsaken. Just then, a chilling revelation struck me. In the mosaic of torment surrounding me emerged a singular truth that resonated like a tolling bell: the altar was my mirror, a reflection of what I could become if I surrendered. And as everything began to collapse around me, a brilliant flash of searing pain erupted through my mind, manifesting as a darkness so potent that it threatened to consume my very being. The last thing I heard before the void swallowed my screams was the unmistakable sound of laughter, a heartless chorus ringing out like a prophecy, declaring triumph over a new potential host. The shadows eclipsed my world once more, and I was lost, bound to an existence deeper than despair, where every choice would echo forever into a fathomless chasm. The overwhelming grasp of the void released its hold, but I was far from free. I found myself floating weightless, yet aware of every lightless corner around me. The familiar sound of the shadowy laughter faded, replaced instead by a soft whispering that felt like fingers caressing my mind. Each voice lured me deeper inside, like a seductive chorus beckoning me to indulge in forbidden secrets, yet laced with a primal fear that gnawed at my spirit. "Embrace us," they wafted, "for within you lies the key to our reawakening." The whispers melded together into a single inescapable thread, winding tightly around me, coaxing me toward visions that danced like ghoulish wraiths. My surroundings morphed into a grotesque facsimile of a medieval chamber, shrouded in murky candlelight that flickered like dying hopes. The once distant echoes of fervent prayers now transformed into desperate moans and lamentations, reverberating with the footsteps of long-lost souls who had succumbed to the hunger on the altar. To my horror, I realized I was in a place steeped in ritual, a sanctuary of the Forsaken that bore witness to the unfathomable lengths to which humanity would go in pursuit of dark desires. Each horrific scene played out around me like a grotesque performance, fueled by uncontrollable lust and terrifying pain. Figures flitted between grotesque wooden statues, each draped in crimson cloths that seemed to breathe, pulling me into a nightmarish tribute to the morbid. I could hear the gasps of women caught in rapture, writhing around an upturned altar, as men draped in shadows offered tributes not to the heavens, but to the abyss. The rituals, once shrouded in solemnity, erupted into wild abandon, a debauched symphony laced with cries that danced precariously on the edge of ecstasy and despair. The air thickened with sensations that bewildered my senses, the proximity of life and death blended into one overwhelming force of nature. My heart raced against its own drum, each beat a reminder of my dwelling within this grotesquerie, teetering on the precipice of surrender. Yet a flickering thread of humanity wrestled within me, a cry for mercy echoed amidst the cacophony. "Join us," they echoed in tandem, their cadences swirling into a tantalizing fever dream. I felt the warmth of their hands brushing against my skin, beckoning me closer, sharing secrets forbidden to my waking mind. With this encouragement, I glimpsed fleeting images etched into the damp stone walls, symbols of an ancient language forgotten to time, each stroke reminiscent of pain mingled with pleasure. An invitation to partake in the twisted communion of flesh and spirit. That I staggered back, fighting against the deluge of images, struggling to anchor myself against the tide of memories that flew toward me, unwanted. Ghostly reflections of those before, lost to the very desires that once drove them to share in the darkness, a darkness promising transcendence through suffering. My own breath mingled with theirs, the damp scent of decay infusing the air. And then it appeared, the spectral figure of the veiled woman, stepping forth from the haze of shadows, a blend of allure and terror. Her eyes shone with a fierce light, betraying an insatiable hunger. She approached with grace, yet her footsteps echoed the collapse of the walls around us. "The truth shall set you apart, but it comes at a price," she said, her voice serrated and sweet. "Every secret harbors a sacrifice, dear one." "Why?" My voice tore from my throat, raw and defiant. "Why do you crave this? What do you desire from me?" "Your spirit is entwined with the legacy of the Forsaken," she pressed, unyielding, her smile a cruel twist of fate. "To know the truth about yourself, to understand the rituals that bind you to this realm, you must face the desires you dare not acknowledge. You were meant to uncover the darkness, but first choose, and within that choice lies the salvation of your soul or its irrevocable doom. The sanctuary erupted in a cacophony, shadows spinning wildly, summoning forth the embodiment of every unsated wish that roamed collectively in seductive desperation. My heart thundered within my chest, entangled in a wretched internal battle against the surge of longing that clawed at the veneer of my sanity. The chamber trembled as their voices crescendoed, a toxic cocktail of despair and temptation swirling around me. And then the laughter returned, hungry, mocking, a sound once familiar yet now rebuffed me with its treacherous ripple. Shadows danced against the stone walls, forming grotesque interpretations of my life and desires. A monstrous figure emerged behind the veiled woman, its frame sprawling grotesquely across the chamber, murmuring an incomprehensible hymn. As my pulse quickened, the walls began to close in, constricted by an unseen pressure. I could feel the whispers wrapping tightly around my consciousness, squeezing tighter with each breath I took. In that moment of terror, just as I thought I would be engulfed entirely, an inexplicable urge surged within me, a desperate cry for liberation, and all at once, the chamber erupted into chaos, the dim light extinguished as laughter reached a fever pitch. Suddenly, a blinding flash tore through, shattering the veil of shadows, and as my vision cleared, I found myself face to face with the monstrous figure, its chilling smile a harbinger of the unspeakable truth I was about to unearth. "Are you ready to dance with the darkness?" It hissed, its voice twisting the air around me into a sinister embrace. In that excruciating moment, the chamber exploded in a kaleidoscope of shadows and light, and as I plunged headfirst into the swirling chaos, a spine-chilling realization gripped me. I was not simply a witness this time, I was intended to become part of the horrific ritual. The madness spiraled around me, the cacophony of whispers boiling into screams of ecstasy and pain, a nightmarish blend that transcended the limits of sanity. I fell deeper into the void, unable to discern where one horror ended and another began. The monstrous figure, with its charred visage and maw stretched into a grotesque grin, seemed to beckon me to join the revelry, a dance of shadows that promised liberation at the cost of my soul. "Together we shall weave the fabric of your deepest desires and fears," the entity rasped, its breath a hot whisper that mingled with the acrid scent of sulfur and decay. It extended an elongated hand, fingers adorned with ghastly talons glimmering in the flickering light, drawing closer the pulsing darkness that enveloped the chamber. That I hesitated, torn between the urge to flee and the insidious temptation of the truth that lurked within the shadows. As the weight of the moment bore down on me, the walls morphed once again, revealing twisted reflections of my life, a gallery displaying not only my dreams but the darkest regrets that haunted my waking hours. "Look closer," the figure urged, its voice melding with the hysterical laughter of the anguished souls that populated this cursed tableau. Images swirled around me, my childhood fears manifested in grotesque beings, the faces of lost friends twisted in lamentation, the moments of passion laced with betrayal, all swirling hauntingly amidst the spiraling shadows. Each echo of my life, pupils dilated with fear, eyes filled with yearning promises and unfulfilled desires. Feeling the pressure behind my eyes, the urge to escape surged in my chest like a tidal wave of desperation. "Help me!" I cried, but the words were lost amidst the deluge of torment. As if in response, a quiet emerged within the chaos, the air thick with anticipation. The spectral veil shifted, and a figure stepped forth, its presence ethereal yet commanding. It was the veiled woman, her hands lifted as if to orchestrate this violent symphony, illuminating the path toward the truth with an unearthly glow. "Seek the fire within that terrifies you the most," she intoned, her voice echoing like a distant melody entwined with screams. "Let your fears and cravings intertwine and ignite like a dark flame. Only then will you grasp the essence of your being." The chamber reverberated with rising intensity, shifting from dark despair to a pulsating thrill. Shadows danced and writhed, spiraling toward me, each one promising to reveal secrets hidden deep within, secrets that could bind me to the eternal void or set forth a path of awakening. My heart raced. Could I truly confront the darkness? I felt the eyes of countless souls press upon me, their whispers like chains pulling me toward the evolving mass of horror. "Join us, become one with your desires," they chanted, their voices a chorus that filled my impending terror with a haunting resonance. And then, amidst the swirling madness, a vision broke free, a single moment of clarity that heralded both dread and exhilaration. I stood at the crossroads of my fate, staring down a long path lined with sacrifices that echoed throughout eternity. Each step forward would gnash at my soul, peel away my layers of sanity, but what lay at the end, was it enlightenment or damnation? In another blink, I was transported to the altar, where shadows converged, swaths of crimson fabric cascading like rivers of blood draping ancient stone. I could feel the pulsating energy coursing through me, a rush of pleasure and despair intertwined, igniting something far too powerful to comprehend. The laughter returned, a deafening agony that threatened to overwhelm my senses. Suddenly, the veiled woman approached, her breath hot against my ear as she whispered, "Choose now, seeker. Will you awaken your deepest fear and unleash the horrors within, or will you surrender, allowing despair to feast upon your spirit? The ritual demands a tribute, and your choice will illuminate the path that fragments you into existence." As I stood teetering on the brink, the chamber trembled violently, and the chorus of the damned swirled in a frenzy, transforming into a cacophony of thirsting cries. I could feel the darkness closing in, the shadows growing more sentient, seeking answers to millennia of twisted rituals. Just as I prepared to cast my decision into the fray, a deafening roar shattered the air, the ground trembled beneath my feet, and a fissure erupted before me, revealing a bottomless abyss filled with tortured visages. Flames licked at the edges, incinerating every hint of mercy that lingered. In that moment of despair, where light and dark collided in a violent union, I felt the pull of the abyss becoming personal, a terror I could not deny. The voices crescendoed into screeches, merging with my own cries of fear, as reality fractured around me. Then silence fell, an all-consuming quiet that swallowed the chaos whole, and in that void of uncertainty, the monstrous figure leaned closer, its breath a vengeful whisper. "Your choice awaits, for chaos never forgets what it demands." And before I could respond, the ground beneath my feet crumbled away, sending me spiraling into the unfathomable maw of darkness, where echoes of my choice taunted me, forever suspended between damnation and salvation. The abyss awaited, hungering for the substance of my soul. The fall into the void was unlike anything I had ever experienced, a sensation that transcended mere terror. I plummeted into an existence where sound was swallowed by blackness, and time was a forgotten concept. The abyss pulsed around me, resonating with an unsettling warmth that curled around my limbs and seeped into my marrow. As hesitant memories flickered like dying embers, I fought against the sensation of losing my individuality, the tug of countless souls yearning for recognition, for a shared warmth, a grotesque communion orchestrated by the unseen maestro of despair. A surge of dread coupled with longing clawed at my throat, and suddenly, my fall halted, shifted to a disturbing hover, as there emerged shadows, figures stepping into formation from the darkness, their faces familiar yet warped, echoing my fragmented past. They were the people I once loved, trapped yet vibrant in their torment. They called to me with mouths that opened wide, dissolving into a symphony of cries that blended with my own. "We were never meant to forget you," they chorused, their eyes gleaming with the hollow longing of souls anchored to the darkness, ghostly echoes of laughter riding high above. "You were always part of this madness." Confusion intertwined with anguish as I reached out to them, grasping for recognition, for solace amidst the swirling horror. But their faces twisted away, grotesque caricatures of beauty, shifting into shades of despair, neither vivacious nor completely dark. The entity that had brought me here was evidently reveling in my torment. The echoing laughter flared, transforming into an unsettling chant, "Embrace the fire, awaken the shadow." And so they began to move, circling me until the dark energies threaded through their forms enveloped me. Each step they took sent shockwaves through the void, each rounded chant ignited the fire that simmered within. I was forced to face what I had buried so deep. Images exploded in my mind, a horrific tapestry of my past, the unforgotten, the forsaken, the errors illuminated by the glow of sorrow. I saw it all, the betrayal of trust, the caress of infidelity stewing in the marrow of my upbringing, moments that had forever shaped me, seeped into my consciousness like an inescapable toxin. The layers began to unravel, and I realized they were magic. Each haunting memory was a spell binding me to this realm, each narrative a renunciation of self. As I began to grasp the magnitude of the confluence surrounding me, an alien force surged from the shadows, throttling me with visceral strength. The air was thick with palpable dread, a sweet, sickly perfume that burned into my lungs, causing involuntary coughs that echoed off the cavern walls. And then, through this maelstrom, a flicker of understanding seized me. The dark entity at the heart of this horror was not merely a specter. I had summoned it with my own choices, carving its existence from my fears and desires. The shadows I had forged now coalesced into one monstrous form, a grotesque amalgamation of all my most shameful moments fused into one nightmarish figure, a living embodiment of my regrets. "Join us," it screeched, its face a twisted version of my own, echoing my laughter directly back to me, distorted and warped. "We shall guide your desires to unspeakable heights. Permit us your pain, allow us the tributes of your soul, and let the liberation begin." Suddenly, a guttural scream tore from my throat, a plea discarded into the void, echoed back, reverberating as though a hidden truth awakened something within the chamber. The figures wavered, their forms glitching through the fabric of reality as if they were captured in snapshots of a cosmic film reel stuck between two frames. In that split moment, fear clawed its way into my chest, and I began to perceive other figures in the distance, silhouettes with a strange familiarity, more recently familiar but less distinct faces I had not seen before but felt an instinctual connection to. They stood at a precipice carved by shadows, boundless whispers curled around them, beckoning seductively into the swirling gloom. "Help us!" they cried out, hands outstretched, a plea woven within the very fabric of my being. I felt the tug of something untouched, igniting the flickering remnants of hope within my heart. The fear that clawed me felt insignificant compared to the potential for redemption hidden among the lost souls, but in a sudden flicker, the entity seemed to sense my shifting emotions, its grip tightening around me, the chance morphing into a violent shriek that threatened to shatter my capacity for thought. "You will not escape. We will consume you, body and soul." In that terrifying moment of clarity, I realized the haunting truth: the shadows were here not only to drag others down but to feast upon my will to resist. A nameless dread threatened to drench me in the same despair that cradled the figures now encircled around the abyss. The darkness swelled once again, cascading toward me as the grotesque apparition loomed, filled with rage and desire, twisting into a visage that held my life's regrets unflinchingly defiant. It was a reminder that what you surrender to the darkness may take a form more catastrophic than any shadow you flee, and as the spirals of anguish drew towards me, the ground beneath those distant souls fractured, plunging them deep into the consuming abyss, their screams entwined with a dreadful silence as they disappeared from sight. I stood frozen, torn between compassion and survival. "Join us or watch them fall." The figure bellowed, its voice reverberating through the chamber, an ultimatum pressing against my chest until I feared my ribcage would split. With a heart pounding in my ears, I felt the surge of desperate hope entwining with the suffocating terror. I had to act, but to surrender could mean losing what little remained of me. In a final surge of strength, I declared, "I refuse," but before I could finish, the ground cracked again, devouring both my resolve and the souls reaching for me, flinging me into a torrent of darkness that awaited with an insatiable hunger. As I descended, the bottomless chasm radiated a dim, flickering light, a horrifying glimmer that mirrored the chaotic dance of my past, bouncing between salvation and obliteration. The shadows shrieked behind me as my hand reached desperately for the light, knowing that my next choice could either sever the ties of despair or erase me entirely. And then, just as I thought I had grasped the ephemeral flicker, everything went black, replaced by a chilling void that promised the end of hope, of pain, of everything I had once been, but that promise was swallowed whole by the whisper that followed: "This is not where it ends. Your choice is yet to come." The flicker of light faded into the consuming void, pulling me into an abyss that felt both suffocating and liberating. I was weightless, suspended in an exhale of time, when a sudden, jarring pull yanked me from the depths. I thrashed out, arms flailing in a desperate bid for connection, for something tangible in the endless dark. As gravity took hold, I landed on an unsettling surface that quivered beneath me. The ground was slick and warm, pulsating with a heartbeat of its own. I clung to sanity as the obsidian void shifted, revealing a hazy silhouette at the edges of my vision. There, just beyond reach, swirled a cacophony of shapes rotating in a grotesque ballet, warped figures eclipsed by the darkness. I squinted against the muted glow radiating from what seemed to be the remnants of the dim flicker I had nearly seized. It twisted like a flame, some malevolent sentinel beckoning me, the whisper climbed in urgency, its tendrils curling around my consciousness. Come closer. Embrace what you fear most. Compulsion surged through me, as though the shadows had taken root in my very essence, gnawing on my mind like parasites feasting on festering wounds. Each pulse of the underfoot warmth synced with the frantic staccato of my heartbeat, driving me forward inch by trembling inch. What is this place? I murmured, voice trembling as the air thickened with dread. A surge of laughter erupted from the depths, the kind that sent shivers racing down my spine, as if the shadows themselves were mocking my terrified curiosity. Welcome to the shadow market, a voice echoed, guttural and keen, slicing through the malevolent laughter. Emerging from the haze, a figure began to materialize, a merchant of misfortune, draped in tattered robes that fluttered without a wisp of wind. Its face was obscured by a twisted mask, and though the features were hidden, I could feel its wicked smile as it surveyed me. The wares we offer are many, but beware, every item carries a price, one that entangles your very essence in this wretched realm, it hissed, revealing rows of grotesque artifacts gleaming in the shadowy half-light. Trinkets tangled with fears, twisted memories, and the unbearable weight of regret surrounded me like a silent storm, forming a looming gallery of misery. What do you want? I yelled into the storm, my voice trembling as I turned away from the artifice of warped desires, feeling the weight of countless lost souls breathing down my neck. Your story, your desires, your sorrow, the merchant swayed back, inviting as a serpent. We are entities of exchange. To escape this murky gloom, you must pay a tribute of painful choice, a memory to nourish the gluttonous abyss. A shiver of guilt gripped my heart, embedding itself deep as the nightmares, the flickering souls floated at the edges of my awareness like shadows at twilight. It was always about sacrifice, about choosing what part of myself I would lose in this trade. No. I shouted, clawing back instinctively. I won't barter my soul, I won't feed into this madness. The market quaked under my defiance, shadows squirmed and sneered, beckoning from the darkness. Then suffer the consequences. To seek escape while clinging to your humanity, you shall never break free. The merchant's abominable laughter spiraled around me, mixing with the howls of tortured souls, echoing promises of my inevitable demise. The ground beneath me morphed, becoming a roiling sea of shadow and light that twisted and turned as bodies swirled within it. I leaned closer, horrified, as familiar faces surfaced, a mosaic of my past despair, the ones I had failed, the ones I had left behind, caught in an unending loop, forced to confront their sorrow. Help us! They cried, their ghostly hands reaching through the shadows, grasping for me as I recoiled in terror. You hold the key. Only you can stop this. Desperation ignited within me. My heart pounded as I fought against the darkness that clung to my skin, determined to navigate this labyrinth of grief without sacrificing another fragment of myself. Stay back. I won't let you take any more. I shrieked, defiance coursing through my veins, but as I turned, desperate to retreat into the safety of the shadowed corners, the ground broke apart beneath me, opening wide into a yawning chasm filled with swirling agony. The substance engulfed me, pulling me toward the bottomless maw, spiraling down into a whirlpool of haunting voices, a chorus of despair that drowned my resolve. As the tendrils of the abyss snaked around my wrists, pulling me toward doom, I fought with every ounce of will left in my trembling body. The visions of my past raged, crying, laughter, the crushing weight of guilt spiraling together into a storm swirling in my chest. With a thunderous roar, I wrenched free, flinging my arms outwards as if I could embrace the storm itself. Enough! I bellowed, feeling the strength tethered somewhere deep, a flicker of clarity surfacing amidst the terror. You will not have me. With that, I plunged my will into the clash of darkness and light, battling against the mad tide. And just as I thought I could forge a path, an impossibility appeared in my periphery, a glimpse of a familiar figure, emerging from the horrors of the abyss. A monstrous silhouette, wreathed in shadow, yet it bore the unmistakable shape of someone I once knew, someone I had believed was trapped forever. Let me help you, they called, arms outstretched, their voice woven with an unnerving familiarity. The merchant's laughter crescendoed, mingling with the explosive chaos around us as I realized I was not the only one bound by this fate. A horrifying truth settled in my heart: to forge a path of freedom might cost more than I had ever imagined. Do you truly wish to save the lost? The shadowed figure taunted, twisting my emotions like a knife. Then accept the price of your past. As the shadows clamored, closing in with a deafening roar, the chasm beckoned wildly below. In that instant a choice loomed before me. Save myself, or plunge into yet another cycle of despair, following the beckoning hands of the familiar figure engulfed in the dark. Would I extend my hand into the void to rescue the lost pieces of my past, or condemn them further into shadows that had always hungered? I made my choice, teetering on the edge, and heard the chilling voice whisper into the depths, "What you choose decides the fate of us all." And then, with a heart-wrenching decision echoed in my mind, the world around me cracked apart, spirals of darkness and light intertwining as I lunged forward toward salvation or my final doom into the unending void. The darkness swallowed me whole, tearing apart my will as I felt myself falling through the void. The chilling breath of forgotten souls swept past me, a reminder of how many had been consumed by this insatiable realm. I plunged deeper, spiraling like a fallen star, every heartbeat echoing the terror of impending doom. Suddenly, the endless descent transformed into a wild whirlpool of shadow, violently spinning, and I was unleashed into a vast chamber of forgotten horrors. The walls dripped with a viscous darkness that reeked of despair and anguish, and the air buzzed with the whispers of countless souls trapped in the market-esque grip. Faces appeared and then vanished in the glistening blackness, eyes pleading for something I could not give. Panic clawed at me, but before I had time to orient myself, a piercing scream erupted from the shadows, reverberating through the chamber. It was a sound that sent shivers down my spine, laden with the weight of insurmountable regret. I staggered backward, heart racing, as the scream faded into choked sobs, which soon morphed into a ghastly choir of suffering. "Welcome, seeker of truth." A voice rang out, dripping with malevolence. Emerging from the depths was a figure cloaked in shreds of ethereal mist, eerily illuminated by pulsating orbs that floated around like lost spirits. The familiarity of the voice struck my core, heavy like a stone cast into a still pond. Who are you?" I croaked, my throat dry as the winds of despair whipped around me. "I am the custodian," it replied, unveiling a face that twisted in a grotesque mockery of emotions, a grotesque smile that didn't reach the eyes hovering like dark stars in an endless abyss. "I guard the illuminated paths of desires and unearth the darkness buried within." Each word wrapped around my mind, threatening to draw me deeper into its sinister allure. "But why are you here?" I stammered, recoiling instinctively. "The shadow market thrives on the desires of the lost, dear wanderer," the custodian crooned, gliding forward, its presence nearly suffocating. "I offer you a chance, a reveal of your deepest yearnings, your vilest fears. In this realm, truth is nourished by what you are willing to sacrifice. Each memory you surrender pulls forth echoes of those who have been ensnared before." My breath hitched in my throat. "You can't make me." "Oh, but I don't need to." The custodian's eyes glinted with malice as it raised an accusing finger toward the darkness swirling behind me. "You already have made your choice. The price has been set, and the void hungers, always hungers." Unbidden, a cacophony of voices rose from the shadows, the deep timbre of familiar tones blending into a symphony of torment. They cried out, their words a jumbled mess of warnings and recollections that ignited long-buried fears. "You are one of us. You are one of the damned." They mourned, each note sharp like glass cutting through memories of laughter and warmth that I fell to my knees, clutching my head as anguished memories of losses rolled in like an inescapable tide. Friends, family, and moments of joy flickered before me like specters. I was haunted by ghosts of decisions past, the choices that led me here. The custodian hovered above me, a smirk twisting its grotesque features, relishing in the chaos of my unraveling. "Surrender, dear soul. The shadows are your ally now, ushering forth the price you must pay to escape this torment." A deafening roar erupted as tendrils of shadow snaked around my body, seeking entrance beneath my skin. They began to wrap around my heart and squeeze, curling into the delicate recesses of my memories, ferreting out cherished fragments to plunder. "No. I screamed, futilely clawing at the darkness enshrouding me. I won't allow you to take what is mine. But the shadows were relentless. They drove deeper, unearthing every regret, every fearful moment that had been engraved inside me. I could feel my essence thinning, wavering. The custodian watched, its eyes glimmering, feasting upon my turmoil, reveling in my conflict, and then I glimpsed at a flicker of light breaking through the morass, a tether to escape this ghastly purgatory. I focused on it, clawing my way through the tormenting fog, drawing on the last reserves of my will. The distant echo of that familiar voice called to me once more, laced with the promise of salvation. Trust in the light. As I surged toward it, the shadows shrieked in protest, launching out, grasping for my ankles, attempting to drag me back into the unforgiving pit of anguish. The custodian's voice rumbled with fury, "You cannot escape. This realm is bound to your fate." With one final desperate lunge, I reached for the blinding twinkle, feeling warmth radiate along my fingertips. Just as I was on the brink of grasping the light, an unfathomable surge of darkness crashed over me, freezing the moment. The light flickered, wavering ominously as shadows devoured its glow. "Remember your decision," the custodian whispered menacingly, the darkness around it thickening, becoming an impenetrable cloak. I felt that teasing presence fade away, swallowed back into the void before I could seize it. Panic surged through me as the realization jolted my heart. The shadows had changed their game, snatching my last strand of hope from me just as I had dared to grasp it. Then, without warning, I was placed before a brutal choice. The chamber transformed, laden with hundreds of doors now materializing from the darkness. Each door pulsated like a heart, radiating a menacing energy, beckoning me to enter one. Each door would unlock a piece of my past, a consequence waiting to unfold if I were to escape. I must choose, but each door held secrets I had long buried. "Decide quickly." The custodian taunted, laughter echoing throughout the vastness. The walls felt alive, shifting and vibrating with my inner turmoil. The shadows crawled closer, the urgency stifling, and I was paralyzed by the weight of my decision. Before I could clear my mind and choose, the walls began to pulse violently around me, and one of the doors shuddered open, revealing an otherworldly glow that beckoned me forward. It felt so inviting, safe, warm. But as I stepped to the threshold, a sudden chill swept through, stirring my instincts to a primal roar. With the tendrils of the abyss curling around my ankles, drawing me closer to my doom, I was left standing at the precipice of terror, heart racing, face to face with destiny, knowing that whatever lay beyond that door was going to change everything forever. The threshold loomed before me, an agonizing division between salvation and obliteration, shimmering like a mirage in a desert of despair. The air was thick with the scent of decay and stale sorrows, but that doorway drenched in shimmering luminescence promised illumination, a way out from the clutches of the darkness. My heart drummed against my ribs, a cacophony of fear and desperation gushing forth from the very depths of my soul. I knew the choice was mine, yet the weight of the past clawed at my consciousness like a spirit hellbent on dragging me back. The custodian loomed near, its shadowy visage conforming and shifting like liquid darkness. "Choose wisely," it hissed, its voice a blade cutting through the frigid fog. "The path you select will unearth not just your horrors, but the darker truths that lie within." I hesitated, taking a step back, wanting desperately to deny the undeniable pull of the shimmering door as whispers coiled around me. Voices echoed in delirium, urging me with both tender allure and icy dread. They knew me, these unfathomable shadows. They bore witness to my existence, my choices, all that had led me here. In the recesses of my mind, the realization deepened. The doors offered more than just passage, they tantalized with the promise of revelations that could reshape everything I thought I knew about myself. That I could hear them, my losses, my tainted victories. My family's laughter mingling with their cries, their intangible forms flickering like candle flames, reminding me that within my grasp lay the very essence I feared confronting. "This is your reckoning," the custodian rumbled, its form swelling in anticipation, hungering for my decision. That I closed my eyes, wrestling with the onslaught of memories and terror, each reminder slicing through me like a dagger of ice. There was the trembling figure of my sister, floating amid shadows, her once vibrant laughter turning to gasps of desperation. Days spent in quiet joy now haunted with layered regrets of unspoken words, the tension between love and storms that stained our bond deep crimson. And in each pulse, a choice loomed like the shadows roamed. Will you stand in the light, or will the darkness consume you whole? The voice of the custodian twisted, sending a shiver through my spine. Make your tribute. Just then, the memories surged into focus, sharp enough to slice through the chaos of emotion surrounding me. One door radiated with a familiar pulse, adorned with memories of laughter and warmth, one that beckoned with both joy and synchronously mingled with agony. The others, darker, were steeped in my own fears of betrayal, moments I loathed wrapped tightly in regretful shrouds. With a trembling breath, I reached for the shimmering door despite the darkness clawing at my ankles. A vision raced through my mind, my sister, her once bright future now suspended like a fragile thread of hope, teetering on the precipice. How could I forsake her by yielding to the shadows? Would this be just another betrayal? The moment of decision coiled tight, and finally, I grasped the handle, yanking the door wide open. A blinding light erupted, drowning the shadows and searing through my already frayed nerves. I stepped through, no longer ensnared but willing to confront whatever horror awaited me, and I understood then the figures I had abandoned, the ones who begged for help without uttering a word, were not trapped. They were reflections of my own forsaken parts, reminders of the choices I had left buried beneath the tides of regret. The door slammed shut behind me, cutting off the echoing whispers, leaving me alone, stripped of any comfort I once found in familiarity. That I stood in a cavern of swirling light, a luminescent expanse that radiated warmth, a welcomed cocoon. Yet the irony twisted bitter around the edges. Shadows started to shift around me, reluctantly peeling away, revealing countless doors lined against the walls of this new realm. Each stepped forth, abominable specters oozing despair and longing. Out of the shadows emerged a figure, tall and slender, its face obscured by a veil, shimmering and flickering like the candlelight, a remnant from the shadows. You think the price is lifted? You think you can walk this path without consequence? It whispered, words thick with anticipation. Who are you? I gasped, heart hammering at the scripted horror unfolding. I am but a guide, beloved seeker, it crooned, lifting its hand to reveal the spectral chain snaking from its wrists, shining bright yet cracked and worn. But you have claimed the light without realizing darkness lingers still, birthed from the choices you sought to escape. A jagged chill curled into my gut, pulses of uncertain dread spiraling inside. I took a step back, heart racing as the other doors creaked open. Each one revealed hidden nightmares, desires unleashed. They resonated with familiar echoes, wails mingling within my consciousness, pleading for release. Above them, the presence of my sister loomed, a mirage of affection twisted through dimensions, eyes searching mine for acknowledgement. No. This cannot be. I wanted to be free. I cried, fighting against the grip of reality. True escape is but an illusion, dear heart. Its voice lilted softly through the air, tauntingly sweet. Each choice steps forth from the shadows seeking communion. To heal, you must first face the truth that binds you, and the fiends behind you still hunger. With horror dawning, I staggered back, the facade waning, revealing the darkened walls of my past converging into one repugnant truth. I could no longer dodge the inevitable. What price would I pay for my own spark of salvation? As the shadows moved in closer, their whispers intensified, a clamoring tide urging me towards the dark exchanges that ghosted the air. It was all too clear. I had opened a door, but not just one. It was a gateway into realms unknown, where jagged truths awaited, twisting together like the strands of fate I once believed I could outrun. Then came the haunting realization, I was still tethered to the very shadows I tried to escape. The ones that craved recognition, the enticing promises of power, and the retribution of those I had lost, all hidden behind each door, waiting for me to unlock their horror. Suddenly, the ground beneath me twisted, transforming into a delicate balance upon a razor-thin edge, and as I soared towards that precipice, one last thing shuddered in the depths of my soul. Come what may, the darkness lingers still, and regardless of the choices made illumined by light, I would never truly escape. With that chilling clarity piercing through my mind, the final blow fell. I realized then, while light can illuminate, only darkness breathes life into the very essence of what it means to exist. As the doors began to close one by one, the shadows reached out for me, entwining whispers now echoing louder than before, and I heard myself utter the truth. You cannot let go of what you never truly lost. And from that truth, there was no salvation. The last vestiges of the light flickered, swallowed whole by the ravenous maw of darkness, leaving only a lingering echo. Welcome back, they cooed, entwining around me, as everything faded into haunting familiarity. In that instant, I finally understood, I was never meant to be free. The darkness was my tapestry, the shadows my dance partners forever etched in the recesses of my soul, the stillness enveloped me, the laughter echoing in my ears like an old, forgotten lullaby, sweetened by the sharp scent of despair. And with resignation, I succumbed to their embrace. It was only the beginning of the story now etched within the hollow walls of the shadow market, where every choice would continue to haunt my humanity forevermore.